Well, good morning. I would like to start today just with a very brief history of cities, since the topic this morning is cities. I like to show this image because it describes how settlements typically started. It was around a scarce resource like a well. Settlements were very compact because people had to walk. She had to carry that pot of water on her head from the well to wherever she lived and worked. And if you look at the first compact cities, for example, this one, 2900 BC in the Euphrates Valley, you can see that it was very dense in the center, typically had a wall around the dense core. A second wall contained the high-value food production like orchards, and then the food that was annual crops was outside of that. If you notice, since we'll be talking a little bit about mobility, they had a mass transit link to the rest of the world. It was a waterway that allowed ships to navigate quite efficiently. And in this part of the world, like Louvain in Belgium, it's exactly the same diagram several thousand years ago. And one can literally find hundreds of diagrams of such compact cities all over Europe and even Asia, Latin America. As urbanization happened at a more rapid pace, typically these villages came together and formed a larger city, but for example, in Paris and many other cities kept that same settlement pattern. So the 20 arrondissements of Paris, series basically of villages, each with their own center, their own identity. About 1880, the technology began to transform cities. So trolleys, that first were horse-drawn and then powered, allowed the city to spread out along these lines, so more or less high-density corridors. 40 years later, 1920, everything changed. The car hit, it allowed this low-density expansion. Everything in between the rail lines got filled in, and this is what we end up with today. This is the classic urbanization model that is based on the automobile in Los Angeles. But you find the same settlement pattern in a higher density form in China, like Guangzhou, which is basically, rather than people living and working and playing and engaged in all aspects of life in a compact, walkable district, this is separated functions linked by the automobile. Same pattern you find all over the world. I took this video from my taxi window when I was in Beijing a couple of years ago on a very good day, where there's yellow and green on the signage, no red. But you find the same thing. So a worse day, it's stalled. You find the same pattern, Mumbai, and Shanghai, Sao Paulo, etc. Cities really matter. It's really important to get this right. And I think we're now developing cities in quite a dysfunctional model. We have to rethink them dramatically. Most of you probably know that 90% of the population growth from here on out will take place in cities. Almost all the energy consumption, something like 70%, will take place in cities. What I find even more interesting is that almost all of the innovation will occur in cities. This is a diagram of where patents are filed, which is not a perfect metric for innovation, but it's okay. They're concentrated in those cities that have the amenities, the attributes that support innovation. Mayors all over the world are thinking about now about innovation districts, how to support entrepreneurship. There's an article from the Brookings Institution from last year, The Rise of Innovation Districts, talking about a new model of innovation happening directly in cities. So the question we're asking is, what enables high-performance, livable, entrepreneurial cities? And those three are chosen very carefully. High performance is about how efficiently you use resources. Livable, of course, quality of life. Everybody wants that. Entrepreneurship, about creating jobs, GDP, growth. That's what the mayors want. That's what helps get them reelected. So the three parameters that we think are critical to enabling innovation in cities are density, proximity, and diversity, because in the end, it's all about social ties and connections and sharing of information. Density is just getting critical mass of people exchanging ideas. Diversity is you want people with different backgrounds sharing ideas. If everybody's thinking alike, you're not likely to get new ideas. And proximity is just getting all the pieces in the right place to support that kind of innovation. So then most of the systems that we work on support that goal. Mobility on demand is one of the key areas that we're looking at, and it's about creating alternatives to the private automobile in compact districts. Private cars kill innovation, I believe, because it lowers density, it separates people, it doesn't allow for the kind of vibrancy and interaction that one needs to find in a city. Now, there's some trends that you see revealed in countless articles. I just picked a few. One is that many European cities have plans to go car-free. This is an article from a couple of weeks ago. I took this photograph in Amsterdam a few weeks ago, where there used to be cars on this lane. Now, no cars, bikes only. Very powerful trend. Sharing economy, everybody's thinking about that. Article from The Economist. I particularly see it with young people that we work with from MIT and Harvard. They're all adopting this very quickly. Another article I like from The Atlantic, why millennials aren't buying cars or homes. Buying cars and homes used to be the best way to revive an economy after a recession. That's not happening so much anymore because these young people are moving to the city. They don't want to have their assets tied up in things like housing and cars. Of course, the high-stakes race to rid the world of human drivers, that's because human drivers are very dangerous, so that trend is happening very quickly. So this is a diagram that shows the kind of mobility modes that we think should be available in a compact urban district, particularly focused on innovation districts. The most important in the upper left, which is walking, that's the most mobility mode we should design most carefully for. Shared bikes. I see there's a system here in Toulouse, like many cities. On-demand shuttles, moving away from heavy infrastructure like rail and subways towards more dynamically routed on-demand transit. And then the four boxes in red are the vehicles that we've designed in our group. So electric green wheel, that we call it, to convert bikes to electric bikes, a little three-wheeler, folding electric robo-scooter that's designed to be integrated with bike sharing, and the city car. I'll just talk about a couple of these ideas. First of all, an old project, old in that we finished it a couple of years ago, was the city car. So this had four innovations. It had robot wheels, drive motor, steering, braking, suspension in each wheel. It was all drive-by-wire like a modern airliner. Get rid of engines, transmissions, so you can fold the car, so the length of it is the width of a conventional car. You get 3.5 vehicles to one conventionally parked vehicle. Front door opens, you step directly out. We got a lot of press on this project. We built a full-scale prototype, tested it in Spain, launched it in Brussels at the EU headquarters with Barroso presiding over it, our happy sponsor that day. Then I realized that was not a great idea, given that it still was a car, you know, and most trips occur with one person. So then we moved towards a folding three-wheeler. We started out calling it a personal electric vehicle. We switched to persuasive electric vehicle because we're building in strategies to persuade people to shift to a more rational, efficient, sustainable mode to get more exercise. And then I realized that still was not thinking far enough into the future, because the combination of these three attributes, autonomy plus vehicle sharing plus electrification, is the future. In fact, I think privately owned autonomous vehicles will be deadly for central cities. But it's not only about moving people, it's about moving goods. So Amazon, of course, proposed to deliver goods with flying drones. This will never happen in Manhattan, I guarantee it. Skype founders built this little robot to deliver goods. So we're thinking about both of these. Now, autonomy projects at MIT started 2007. The technology was about $100,000. This was more or less what the Google car was, and then shifting all the way down to what we're working on now, this little three-wheeler, the cost of the processing to enable technology is now about $500. This is our roadmap, more or less, our prediction of how this will play out with complexity on the lower axis, speed on the upper one. We're very interested in driving in bike lanes and in parks and universities rather than driving at highway speeds. Bike sharing, of course, just taking off is extraordinary. You know, 855 in 2014, many more now. All kinds of data that's being collected from these shared systems so we can get a fine-grained understanding of how people are using and moving within the city and respond to that. This is a project from the Singapore-MIT Alliance with shopping carts that are autonomous. So this is like a driverless Uber system. You call for a pickup, it comes to you, takes you to your destination, you get out wherever you want, it goes on its way. This is what we plan to do in Singapore, which is our little three-wheeler that now doesn't fold to save space, but it transforms into a goods mover. So we're combining people and goods moving. This is the prototype that we built. So the innovation here is bike-like, not car-like. It's legal in bike lanes. It operates more or less at walking speeds when it's in autonomy mode. Very low cost, shared use, moves people and goods. We tested it on the streets and around campus 3 or 4 weeks ago, shot this little video. So the technology is there, and we plan to take this to the Consumer Electronics Show in January. We'll be showing it there. We're very interested in how that impacts the city. Everything in red here is a parking lot in Kendall Square. This is where MIT is, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Now, if you move towards shared use systems, all of those white boxes are now parking lots that can be put to more higher and better uses. Now, the real benefit is when you move to shared autonomous systems, then you can store all the vehicles basically in one parking lot, and they're just there to be charged. Total trip time is something like a half of private ownership. So there are a lot of benefits to the city just beyond the mobility benefits in that you can use land for higher and better uses. This shows a parking lot, about 45 cars that have converted to micro units. You can house 528 people in Cambridge at the height limits that are allowed. So I just want to talk about housing just for a minute, even though I'm supposed to talk about mobility, because I think the two are tightly linked. Young people are being priced out of the cities that are most innovative. Mayors, this is former Mayor Bloomberg in New York City. He advocated building tiny micro units so the housing is affordable for young people in the creative heart of the city. Proposing a 300 square foot apartment, what's that, 28 square meters? It was a terrible apartment. Had a pull-out sofa bed, you had to operate every day, almost no storage. So we said, what if we could design a 200 square foot apartment that functioned as if it was 3 times larger? And we're doing that same idea as the city car in a sense, in that we're using robotics and transformation to allow this small space to convert from a bedroom with a queen-size bed to a fully functional study to a dining room with 6 people, a living room with 6 to 8 people. The requirements that I put on this project is you needed to have a handicap-accessible, fully functional bathroom when you need it, on demand, a very compact kitchen, but doubling the counter space when you wanted to prepare a more elaborate meal, a platform to integrate all kinds of new technologies. We are looking at touch sensors, gesture, voice control, party mode right here. That was fun. We built that prototype. We put it on YouTube, got over 1 million views in the first few weeks. IKEA joined our group, so we're working with them now to test some of these ideas. We have an apartment in Sweden now where we put 250 of our little sensors, so we're collecting very fine-grained activity about what people are doing in this space. That little bouncing ball is just showing the sequence of sensor fires in effect, the doors you're opening, the drawers you're opening, the appliances you're using. So you see the patterns of activity that people engage in this kind of domestic activity. We just launched a company last month to commercialize this technology as a Media Lab spinoff. The idea is to deliver this technology directly to developers. Now, the third project I want to talk about is Cityscope, which is taking these and other ideas and modeling them and allowing for a diverse group of stakeholders to get involved in the decision making, much like this little clip from Avatar. People are standing around a table discussing the visualization of complex three-dimensional data sets. We've been working on the same ideas for urban planning and system integration. In this case, this is Kendall Square, where MIT is. It's a white Lego model with augmented reality, a series of high-resolution projectors that allows for all kinds of simulation, solar radiation, wind flow. These are easy things. More interesting to me where the money is flowing, for example, that bright yellow building there is the Cambridge Innovation Center with 350 startups, so that's where all the venture money is flowing, the lion's share of it in Kendall Square. Using geolocated tweets as a proxy for where young people are active, so he sends a tweet, hashtag Cityscope, Media Lab lights up, and you can see the areas, kind of a heat map of density of Twitter messages. Bright area right there is where all the restaurants are, where the students go for lunch in the afternoon. Planning tools, we worked with the Riyadh Development Authority to build a platform. Here we have a three-dimensional model with elements that can be rapidly moved. We project onto that model, in this case, showing walkability. The green areas are more walkable. The red and orange areas less so, and as you move the pieces, you get feedback. You can look at traffic, at daylighting, at energy performance, et cetera. Quite interesting. In Toronto, we built a tool to look at traffic. This is placing commercial buildings in blue in a district where everyone has to drive in, so the roads, shown in red there, get all clogged up with traffic. Now, as you begin to add residential, you reduce the demand for parking, which is this graph over here. When you put living and working in balance, you increase the probability people walk to and from work, can increase the density, get rid of parking to a large degree, and the district's in harmony. That's what we're looking at in this case. Now the next step is we're modeling human activity. We're very excited about this. So these are two commercial buildings. They're too far apart to get the interaction. The proximity is bad. The density is low. You had housing, increasing the diversity, and all of the other third places, shops and cafes, and can look at the mixing. We took Barcelona, abstracted this great urban plan from Barcelona, took the 16 blocks, divided them into 16 squares, each with buildings. As you place them, they're databases. And we look at the millennials, who are in blue, living in the cheap housing, away from the center of the city. As you bring the micro-units down, you're attracting the young people because they now have affordable housing, and we can model the optimal mix, eventually, we think, of the mixing of people with different backgrounds, sharing ideas, which supports innovation. So we're quite excited about that prospect. In this case, you can see the table with the pieces that are manipulated, the screen with a detailed, can be hyper-realistic view of the architecture in the urban plan. As you move the buildings, they're updated in real time, and different ways to interact with the models. This is a view cube. It's like flying a drone over the physical model. Gives you a view of the three-dimensional model. This is all in the interest of allowing a broader range of people, not just experts, but mayors and people that live in cities to interact with this. So to that end, we formed a relationship now with 6 cities. I'll mention 3 of them. We call them our Living Lab partner cities. Hamburg is one. And by the way, the mayor of Hamburg says he wants the city to be car-free by 2034. I asked him about this 2 weeks ago. He said it's actually just 40% of the city, but still, that's quite ambitious. We built a city scope platform in Hamburg. We'll be doing a workshop there in a few weeks with 15 of their researchers. This is a big model we're building in Beijing of a large area of that city. In Taiwan, the former Air Force base in the center of Taipei is now targeted as an innovation district. That's the premier who's giving us funding directly. He got his PhD in transportation at MIT, so he's an old friend. And in Andorra, just over the Pyrenees where I was for the last couple of days, we have a very ambitious project to build a cityscope model. In this case, we're zoomed in on the capital, but around the perimeter are all the other towns. So this is a model of a district in the city, but with the ability to visualize data for the whole country. As you see here, this is looking at the Cirque du Soleil. The French people in blue enter on this side, the Spanish people on this side. You can see the traffic jam as people come into the country. Here you see the explosion of activity around the Cirque du Soleil. So this is actually looking at mobile phones, but it's a nice proxy for the movement of vehicles and the movement of pedestrians. Augmented reality tool that we built for Andorra, where I'm interested in energy, you're interested in people movement. Each can move their tablet over the model, see whatever view they want. In Boston, we just completed a project looking at 5 possible bus rapid transit lanes in the city. A bus rapid transit is sort of a cross between a bus and a subway system. We built models at 3 scales, regional, community, street scale, and went through a workshop where people from this community, and it's a relatively poor community, could look at how these systems would impact them individually, how it would increase their access to jobs, how it would impact parking spaces, throughput of bicycles, speed of bus lanes, commute times, et cetera. Here's the street scale where people could play with this and look at how the different station designs could be realized in Dudley Square, which is the center of this bus rapid transit system. So, we're MIT. We think about technology. But I would encourage everybody thinking about cities not to start with the technology, start with people. You know, cities are about people, and then add the technology when it's useful. That's my message. Thank you.